Hi, it's Pastor Terry here, and I'm here with Pastor Nancy Johnson. Nancy, how you doing?
Good, good. Thank you.
Well, we're excited today because I want to talk about your testimony because I don't think a lot of people, a lot of people do know it, but there are a lot of new people at our church, and even during the quarantine, our church family has grown on the internet. So I kind of wanted you to start off just by giving us your testimony and how
Mhm.
that all came to be.
Yeah, really, it's a testimony of hope because I was kind of in a hopeless situation. And, my husband and I were married when we were young, and we had two boys. And after the first child, I started getting pain in my body and going doctor after doctor. They called it fibromyalgia, but they really didn't have anything that they could do for me. So 14 years go by, and I kept downsliding and not being able to find any answers from the doctors. So finally we that wasn't an answer anymore. I started getting, stomach stuff going on, food allergies, chronic fatigue, chemical sensitivity. So I was living in like a kind of like a bubble situation. And so my kids had to be really careful. My husband had to be really careful. I was allergic to dust and mold. And so we ended up moving us out. We lived in the Seattle area. We moved to Spokane. We had some family there, and we thought, that might be the answer, is just get me in a dry climate away from the mold. And I improved there. And our kids at that time, when our oldest was just going into high school. So we ended up staying in Spokane for 8 years and just trying this thing out. Both our boys graduated there, and we thought, I just wasn't improving, and it was getting cold. It was below 30 in the winter, sometimes 4 feet of snow, and I was just barely hanging on and shivering all the time, really cold. But I got to the point where I could only eat two foods for 3 years. Unfortunately, it was cod and broccoli, which my family didn't appreciate too much, but that's how it was. And but I got down to 82 pounds, and I tried everything, 100 self-help books, forgiving everybody, but I never met the Lord. I was raised a Catholic, but we left the church when I was probably 16,
Mm.
and never really thought that would be the answer. I never knew the Bible. We had a priest, but I never knew the Bible. So fast forward to us leaving Spokane, we decided we got to get out of there. The day we left, it snowed 6 feet as our big truck was pulling out. So we made it back over the pass just in time and ended up on Camino Island because we figured out that Camino Island had a rain shadow, right? And that there might not be as much mold out there. So we just thought we'd give it a try. And, at this time we were empty nesters. Our kids were, out of the house, and but after 2 months in that new place, my husband came home one day, and my husband's amazing, by the way. He just was so loyal all these years and just stayed with me and, helped me and was rescued me. I don't know how many times, but he finds me in the hallway crawling down the floor, and I was so dizzy I couldn't stand. And so he ends up taking me to the hospital, which is the last place I wanted to go because doctors couldn't really help me at all. I was allergic to medication. So he gets me over there. They find out that I've got hypothermia, 85-degree body core temperature, and malnutrition from, all these years and years of not being able to really have the kind of food that I needed. So anyway, I end up on a hotbed there, and they're trying to heat me up, and I wouldn't stay I lost my memory, so I really don't even know what happened. But for 6 days, they got me warmed back up, and Rich was able to get me out of there and takes me home. I don't know who he is. It took out my brain function, something in the IV therapy. So him and a naturopath were devising these concoctions, and they were giving me, and they put me on food. I didn't know what they were feeding me. But for some reason, 30 days later, I wake up to see that Richard, my husband, is feeding me foods and all my memories came flooding back in, feeding me foods that I couldn't eat. And I'm crying, and I'm pounding on his chest saying, "What are you doing?" And he's smiling at me saying, "It's okay. I've been giving this to you for 30 days. You're on it now. It's all right." So I was being built, my nutritional status was being built back up. But I tell you what, Richard turned on the TV one night and was flipping through the channels and saw that there was this show on called Night of Hope, and it was Joel Osteen. Now, we had never watched anything like that, but he called me out and said, hey, let's just watch this. And I was listening to this pastor talk about that God wanted to do miracles for you, and that God was going to give the hopeless hope, and no matter what it was, if you lost your business or, something happened in your family member or you were sick, God was doing miracles, and, they were having them. They were telling about testimonies, and I heard this and my heart was just pounding. And, there was a prayer at the end called Being Born Again. And I heard that and I thought, maybe that is something that I should try, because I literally have tried everything. And I watched it 3 more times and I said that prayer at the end. And Pastor Terry, I watched, and I don't know how my spiritual eyes were open, but I watched this black light fly out of my heart and the light of Jesus come in. And I could hear Jesus telling me how much he loved me and wanted relationship with me. And he started telling me I needed to go to get prayer, because there were, I had met people at the healing rooms when I was in Spokane, and it didn't really work for me at that time, but I knew there was something there. So at this point, Rich would have to drive me, and literally I couldn't sit down. All I could do was stand or sit at this point. But that's the way it was. So we would take me in the back of our Jeep, laying down on a sleeping bag. And it was, it was kind of embarrassing to get out there in front of my neighborhood and to get in the back. But, I was just determined to get well. And so many people prayed for me. I would go to the healing rooms, and pretty soon I could drive the car myself. Pretty soon I was not, sleeping, 16 hours a day. Pretty soon, the fibromyalgia pain was gone. I started getting foods back. Then I found out about Jake's House, and that there was a ministry school. And I had been watching Andrew Womack on TV, as a shut-in. I've been watching this show and heard about their Bible college, and I wanted to go there. It's like, God, if it's the promises of God that I need, and you're going to, keep your promise, then that's what I need to know as fast as I can in a critical condition like it was. So I grabbed a hold of the Destiny International card, and I went to the opening night. And school was like a week and a half out. It was going to start. I go to this meeting, and there's so much love of God in this place. And I could feel it. And I walked out of there. I walked out the front door of Jake's house, and I was just bawling out there out there in the parking lot. And Pastor Jeshu follows me out there, and I had never met this man before. He follows me out there and says, hey, what do you think? And I go, well, I want to go, but my husband, I have debt. Our credit cards are maxed out. I've got nothing. And he said, and I said, I don't even think I can do it. And he said, well, you know what? If it's God's will, he's going to foot the bill. And you know what? I had never heard a pastor ever say something like that with so much faith. And so I went to an interview with him and Pastor Jody about the school, and they were both praying for me getting, Rich thought, maybe she could do it part-time, she might be able to handle it. But I couldn't even sit down. I would do is stand or lay down, and I thought, how am I going to do this? But I want to go. I know God is, really speaking to my heart about it. Anyway, they prayed over me. They prayed over my mind that I would be able to, mentally be able to do the school, and that it would be provision. I literally walked out of there, went home, and got in my garage, and my phone rang. And I answered it, and it's my neighbor who I told about the school. I don't know. I didn't even remember when I told her, like a week before. She said, that school you were talking about? I said, yeah. She goes, I want to pay for 2/3 of your tuition. So I flip out. Wow. I'm like, this is the most exciting thing that is, God, I guess it's your will that I go, right? So I was excited, to tell Rich. He goes, okay, let's give it a try, just stand in the back of the room. And so I started school, and was able to stand up. And after 2 weeks, the Lord healed me enough to be able to sit down all day. And it was totally miraculous, miracle after miracle. I didn't even know how it happened, because he just said, he told me one time, I go, God, how am I going to do this? I can't even pray now. I have to concentrate. I have to memorize scripture. I have to do all this homework. And he said, only believe, only believe. And it just every day as I was just believing he could do it through me, it happened. And finally I got to where, they were doing outreaches that were outside. And here I am in these dresses because my skin had rashes all over it, and sandals that I couldn't buckle because my feet were swollen. But you know what, little by little, all that stuff went away because I just kept praying and I just kept believing Jesus and that he could do anything. But literally I was in a hopeless situation where there was nothing else but
Right.
God. And so I had to depend on those promises and stand on his word. And there was nothing else for me. There wasn't a doctor or anything. So I'm just really called to bring people hope that Jesus can do the impossible. He can do the impossible. Yeah.
Well, that's great. And Nancy, as a pastor there, I've had a front row seat of seeing your change, which has been pretty amazing. Because I remember when you first started DI, and from then to here, it's just a miracle, And some more exciting news is you wrote a book.
Yeah.
Tell us about your book.
Well, what ended up happening is I stayed involved with the healing rooms because I found that the more I prayed for others and the more I gave out what was given to me, the more I received. So it's better to give than to receive, right? So, and then Pastor Jeshu and Jody noticed that I loved evangelizing when I was in the store. So they would have me lead the outreach teams on Fridays at the school. And I did that 2 years on staff at the school. And then Pastor Keith Kippen said, you know what, would you like to be our outreach pastor for the church? And I'm just like blown out of the water, like, okay, I'll do it, because I just love people and I love them to know about Jesus. But when we're out there on the streets, I'm like, God, we need to give people something. And so I thought about writing a book, so that they don't walk off and forget about it all, and how do you get them discipled and how do you teach them? And there's a lot to learn. And so I thought, I'm going to write all this stuff down, from salvation to forgiveness to the truth, to authority, to how to believe. So I wrote it all in the book and I called it Ask for Your Miracle. It's my testimony plus, what I've learned at the healing rooms and just what people need to know out on the street. So it's a great tool for evangelizing or, sending to a family member that really doesn't know much, so.
Yeah, that's awesome. And we'll put a link in the comments below when this is posted so people can buy it because they can get it on Amazon, correct?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. So maybe in closing, just, let me see a picture. That's pretty.
Yeah, that's the book.
There it is. Ask for your miracle.
Yep.
I like it.
Yeah.
And we have the same editor or editor, right?
Actually, the cover artist. We have the same cover artist.
Yeah, Lynette. Who was your editor?
My editor is from California.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
But we have the same book cover designer because it's my cousin, Lynette.
Yeah.
She's pretty amazing.
Lynette. Yeah, she did a great job.
As we close up here, maybe just quickly tell us about what you're doing now in the church, and then can you pray over people that may need a miracle and maybe they're in the same position that you are in, thinking, man, I've tried everything and nothing works, and just, declare a miracle over them.
Yeah. Yeah. Right now in the church, we have an evangelism team that, we're kind of on hold for that right now with what's going on with the COVID. But we have an evangelism team. We go out and we just share Jesus. And Jesus is knocking at the door of everyone's heart all the time. All the time. He loves us so much and wants us to find out about all his benefits and, his leadership and his healing and his redemption and all these things. And so we have a team that does that. I also have a revival prayer team. We're praying for revival, not just for personal revival, but for family revival, church revival, revival in the whole region, the nation. So that's fun. So we're just really going after God. And I would love to pray for people for healing. Yeah. So Father, I thank you for today, and I thank you that there might be someone listening, God, that has lost hope. And you are the God of all hope, God. And so we just want to release a healing over their bodies if they're just in that position right now where they can just receive. I just want to release and say, do it again, Jesus. Do it again. Pull people completely out of these hopeless situations and release a healing over their minds, over their souls, over their bodies, over bones, over digestion, over pain. We command all those things to leave their bodies now, and for that healing to come in, for that miracle to be released from heaven right now, God. And so we release that now, and we thank you that they are receiving it in Jesus' name. Yeah, amen.
Amen. Well, thank you, Pastor
Yeah,
Nancy. It was an honor to
yeah.
have you on telling about your story and your book. And like I said, we'll put some
Thank you.
information in the comments below on how you can order the book. Make sure you do get one for your friend or neighbor as well. It'd be really good. Well,
Yeah,
thank you, Pastor Nancy.
thank
Love you.
you. Thank you. Love you.